HBO's hit show Entourage enters its 8th and final season this summer. It was inspired by actor Mark Wahlberg's rise to fame. The show, as you know, is about 4 young men from New York trying to make it in Hollywood. They're surrounded by beautiful women, expensive cars, and gorgeous and glamorous parties. But beyond the fame and celebrity, it is also about camaraderie and friendship. Joining me now are Doug Ellen, the show's creator and writer, Kevin Connolly, who plays E, and Jeremy Piven, who plays Ari Gold. I am pleased to have all of them here at this table on this day. So, why are we ending this? It's a good thing. Why ending it?
It's just we've run its course, and we want to do a movie, and I think it's the time that we've done everything we can do on the small screen, and if we have the opportunity to get it and make it a little larger scale, I think it's time to do that.
It's in syndication around the world.
It's in syndication around the world. Yeah, yeah. So we're hoping to get that movie going, and I think as far as the TV show goes, it just felt like the right moment. It feels like we hit our stride, and we're going to go out strong, and it just felt like the right time. So.
Why only 8 episodes?
That was last year. We kind of sat down with HBO and talked about a budget thing. The show's, expensive at this point from where it started. My actors are now, they're rich. So,
but not rich enough, Jeremy, I would say.
Something like that.
Right. So, but we sat down, and this was really almost 2 seasons worth of budgets that HBO gave us. So they said, how do you want to break it up? And we have the funding. We can do 18, and how do you want to do it? So we did a 10 and 8 schedule. So.
It's interesting because if you look at the way the show has progressed, it used to be about suddenly we'd get on a plane and we'd be in France and all these exotic, incredible locations. And I think you were really focused on like outdoing yourself. And then once we realized we had to kind of bring it down a bit, to me, the show almost even got better because then it became more about the relationships and it became more like a play.
Not locations, but relationship.
I think so, and I do love that. I could feel like I could play a few more seasons in an airplane bathroom. It's like literally that small.
What's the difference between the character that was on the page at the beginning and the character he created?
There's an intangible with Jeremy that you can't know it till you see it. But again, Jeremy was in my mind when it was originally conceived, but I still didn't really know the kind of energy that he would bring to it. He's like a lightning bolt. When he gets on screen, all of a sudden it just pops. So, and Jeremy brought, which I'm not sure, in the initial stage, we knew the likability factor and that we would go in these places with his wife and relationships and family. I don't know that was, it was almost like a satire, and it would be this low-life agent in Hollywood, and we would do that, and all of a sudden, 8 years later, he's in my opinion, one of the great family men we've ever seen on TV, and
which is surprising because of character, perhaps?
Yeah, I mean, and especially where it started. And in the first episode, he was talking about having sex with supermodels, which 8 years later, we know he's never cheated on his wife. He's home every night. She controls the family, and so it's interesting, but that's where it goes. But that's with all the actors.
So where did E's characters?
Well, E's character, Kevin and I, Kevin's one of my closest friends off screen, so we've kind of grown this character together from where he was this, this guy working at Sbarro's when he came out, and 8 years later is running this big business, marrying the Emmanuelle Shrieky, the greatest woman on earth. We all talk about this as she's the perfect woman, and so, he's progressed a lot,
Has your character changed?
Well, yeah, I mean, I think he's grown up a lot. I mean, like you said, he comes out here from New York for, running a pizza place, and now he has his own management company, and, he's been successul. So, it's changed. So much has happened in 8 years on the show. I mean, these characters have all, like I said, here's a great example with the character of Ari. It's like, I think going into it, none of us really knew exactly what we were sort of figuring it out as it was kind of going along. And I know Doug always uses the example of David Simon, who created The Wire, had a Bible for The Wire, where he went in and it was like, here's the entire series in a book, and this is it. Not a page more or a page less. They gave it to Doug. Doug was like, oh my God, this is never going to work.
When I was pitching the show, I was going in, Mark, Steve Levinson and I are going in to pitch the show, and I said to my agent, what do I need? And he sent me David Simon's work, and I almost cried. I said, there's no way I could ever do this in a million years.
How many times did you get turned down?
Well, we sold it. I mean, having Mark and Ari in the room, we sold it immediately, which is now, looking back, is meaningless. So we walked out of that meeting spinning around like in Tom Cruise in Vanilla Sky as if we'd accomplished something. It wasn't for another 2 years, and
because they didn't buy the draft and they didn't like the draft.
They hated the draft. I got the first script, which I thought was fantastic.
Do you still have that?
Yeah, I still have it. I still have it. No one can read it but I got the call from Steve Levinson called me. I was sitting on my bed and we were waiting. We were so excited about it, and he said they hate it. I said, what do they hate about it? He said they hate everything about it. So we threw that out and started over, and probably did that really 20, 25 times.
There is somebody had said that they were adamant that it should not be a story-driven show.
Yeah,
it ought to be a show of characters.
It was really, there were a couple of mandates from them. One was they wanted fun, which, in hindsight, looking at Chris Albrecht and Carolyn Strauss and Sarah Condon, they were brilliant. I had some dark sense of what I wanted to do, and Mark was so much more edgier than what we were talking about. So I think in some sense I was trying to accomplish what would have been a disaster, which was a Sopranos in Hollywood almost, which would have been terrible. So Chris and Carolyn really guided us to make this show fun and wish fulfillment. And ultimately we did go to darker places, but they were great with that, and it was almost like, stop with the stories, let's have a good time. And obviously we've gotten more story-driven as we went on.
It is said that Ari is one of the most memorable television characters of the last 10 years. Is that true?
It's so hard to have any distance on this, to be honest with you. I was friends with Mark before this all started, and I was lucky enough to be...
Mark Wahlberg.
Mark Wahlberg, yes. And I was on the Larry Sanders Show for the first few years, which kind of kicked off original programming on HBO. I had a reference for HBO and how they take care of their own and let artists play and do all that stuff. Knowing Mark's world and how fertile the premise could be about the backstage life of Hollywood, knowing Ari Emanuel and the duality that he lives in, where you think, who is this ADD-riddled, aggressive, type A wrecking ball, and yet he is this loving father and monogamous and all these great... There's such a duality there that I knew, my God, it's a feast as a character. So...
contradictions are a feast.
They really are, and I think it allows him to be incredibly reactive and abrasive. And so I knew that would be fun to play. I've never talked about this, but I was lucky enough to... One of my teachers was Tim Robbins, the actor-director, and he taught me commedia dell'arte, which is you're always in one of 4 emotional states: happiness, sadness, anger, or fear at all times. And that helped me so much with this character, because he's always so emotionally stated at a 10. And so, and what that form does is you got to get out of your own way and not second guess yourself, jump into that state. And one of the great things is the language is always there. And the cadence, it's really all set up for you. So you just have to kind of plug yourself in and go. And the rest of it, I have no idea about. I don't know how it's received.
How do you write for him?
Well, obviously he's got so many levels to it, but when you have a character that can say the most offensive things in the world and still be likable, you could do anything, I mean, there's the things, if you put a compilation of the things that I've written that he says, it's pretty scary. I mean, I'm scared for my children to see it.
It's often said about acting that if, in fact, you're playing a despicable character, at least, you need to find something likable that you can hang it on, because that'll make the audience more interested in the character, right?
Yeah.
Yes.
Let me look at a clip. This is Vince. Describe Vince.
Well, Vince is, he's a huge movie star. He's been up, he's been down. I think it's been great that Doug has done that. We've really seen this guy go from 0 to he's been all over. He's been all over the board. But most importantly, he's the easiest going guy on the show, and he doesn't care. He's positive. He's the most positive character on the show, and all he does is look out for his friends and the people around him.
And brought him with him.
I brought him with him.
Here it is. Roll clip.
I'm still the lead, right, bro?
Of course you are.
Nice.
So, how's it look?
Your grammar's horrible.
Who cares?
We were in the same classes since we were 6. It's just shocking to me that you can't punctuate.
It was all stream of consciousness.
You can't really spell either, Vin. Faithful is F-A-I-T-H-F-E-L.
No, it isn't.
It's O-L.
No, it isn't.
So says you.
Are you guys all illiterate? Mrs. Carbone would shoot herself if she heard
Who
this.
cares about my spelling or my grammar? That's not what this is about. This is about a start. A good start to a great story.
We're gonna find you a great writer to help you flesh this thing out.
I already found one.
In your room?
I was thinking, since Billy did such a great job on Johnny's show, we should give him the first shot at this. What do you think?
I like it.
I love it.
The guy knows my voice like Scorsese knows De Niro's.
Okay, talk about the writing of that particular scene.
You know, I love a lot about that scene because it really is, you know, those are my high school friends. I have a reference to a high school teacher, Miss Carbone. I think Kevin changed it to Mrs. Carbone. We used to call her Miss Carbone. She might have gotten married, but that's his improvisation. But, you know, these guys, to me, are so real and so subtle, and they are often overlooked, that group right there. But the writing of that scene is just everything about it is for New York guys who just bust on each other but love each other all at the same time. And that's how I grew up, and those are the friends that I still have today, and you know, so. All right,
that's what you would. What about the rapidity of the dialogue? I mean, how fast-moving it is?
Yeah, I mean, I try to keep it, I always tell these guys, like, it's the faster the better, you know?
Pace.
I mean, our scripts have gone from...
Yeah. I mean, it's all inherent, and a lot of times, you know, Doug will write these great long speeches for Ari, and because he is so stream of consciousness and he has ADD, he's got to drive to his point. Yeah. So you're getting through, navigating through all this dialogue, and so it's fun. You know, you're trying to get to that one bit of information.
Yeah, do you have people coming up to you saying this must be improvisation? Yeah.
They do, and it's a great compliment because that's all
scripted.
And it's scripted, and we're trying. The goal is to make everything be heard for the first time and said for the first time. I mean, you know, just the way you're listening to me right now, they put a close up on you, and you'll steal the scene from me. And the reality is, as an actor, it's your job to play well without the ball. I mean, that's really what it's all about, you know?
It's reaction shots.
We also do, our scripts are 46 to 48 pages, and it's a half-hour show. Theoretically, it's a page a minute, and we're doing 46 pages in 30 minutes.
That was part of the genius of Johnny Carson, too, the reaction shot. What else are we going to see in the new season?
I mean,
we're the humanization of Ari.
Yeah, we're going to try to get back to the early roots. Last year, you know, we got dark. You know, we had Vince doing drugs and Eminem beating him up in front of people, which is amazing that we got to do that. But we're going to try to go back to the roots. This is, again, ultimately forgetting Hollywood, which is obviously very prevalent in the show. This is about friendship, and this is about a core group of guys. So we're going to try to get back to that and hopefully lead people.
Do you believe by saying that you had gotten away from it?
It was by design, so it wasn't something I want to get away from, but it feels like it was the right time to come full circle and go, let's end this.
Which season was the worst?
The worst in terms of content?
Yeah, well, just your judgment. Which one did you think
didn't
measure?
Well, there was one which I don't know which season it was, but we kind of dragged on this whole thing with this movie Medellin. It just kept going and going and going. I couldn't get out. It was like I was in a box of.
You jumped in and didn't know how to get out.
I didn't know how to get out, and because I'm not as smart as David Simon is, I'm not able to plan it out as much.
What's your favorite moment? Year.
You know. It has to be this year. You know,
because of what you just said.
Yeah, I mean, because you don't lose this character's edge. I mean, he's going to figure out a way to win, and at the same time, the things that mean the most to him in this world, which is his wife and his family, are being taken away. Kevin directed episode 7 and did an amazing job. He just
7 of 8.
7 of 8, and I haven't seen it, but 7 and 8. Feel like the best episodes I've ever done, because it feels like everything that we touched on is all in one episode. You know, he's struggling to save his life and his marriage. He has epiphanies that you actively see happen. It's not off camera and comes back and goes, I had an epiphany. You know, and you know, it's up to me to screw it up because it's all on the page. And he's a great director in the way that he sets an atmosphere in which he's really supportive and has incredible energy, more than any of us. He won't stop moving, and has, you know, he gets in there and reinforces things that he likes. And so it makes you feel very comfortable as an artist, and that's the best place to create.
Will you come back to Broadway?
I would love to. I grew up on the stage from the time I was 8 years old. I climbed on stage and did some Chekhov and butchered it, and have been doing it ever since. And I'm a stage actor that's lucky enough to work in front of the camera, and I can't wait to get back. And it just has to be, you know, the right time and the right thing.
On behalf of an audience that's watching you, what happened when you came here?
When I did the show? Yeah. You know, I don't want to waste too much of your time, but it was one of the scariest moments of my life, because I come from a family in which, you know, the show must go on at all costs. Right. So when I became ill from the beginning and alerted,
mercury poisoning.
Well, what happened was I went to immediately the first week of rehearsal. I was literally could not stay awake. went to the hospital, and they checked everything, and I had, among other things, mono. Extreme chronic fatigue syndrome, and then levels of mercury they hadn't seen in anyone walking around. I didn't know what any of this meant. I went to my producers and showed it, and the last thing in my mind is leave. You can't leave. You don't leave. That's just not an option. Anyone else at that point, I was stupid, and anyone else would have gone to their representatives or whatever and said, I can't do this. It's not an option with me. My doctor said, you're going to drop. We don't know when, and I alerted everyone. 4 months into a 6-month run, I'll never forget, it was a Sunday night performance, and I couldn't get enough oxygen for the lines. I couldn't see because it was so bright. I was holding on to things. Finished the show, went to the hospital. The thing that gets me is Mamet is so good and the rest of the actors were so good that even at that level, I ran into people that saw that show and they said it was interesting. And I'm thinking, interesting? I'd want my money back. I couldn't watch that. So I was unable to finish the show. The great Bill Macy, who actually was with my father on Off-Broadway, and I have this great relationship with, finished the show. It was incredibly successful. And to be honest with you, my memories are being on Broadway and doing this incredible show. It was the struggle of my life. I learned so much. I've become incredibly healthy ever since. The fallout from it was not pretty, but I somehow needed to walk through all that, and it's kind of all part of it.
It seems like everybody likes each other.
You know, Jeremy's the Chicago guy, so not to put him on the outside, but I mean, the 4 of them I would have been best friends with in high school. Is not even a doubt in my mind, and Jeremy probably as well. But
go ahead.
Yeah, but I mean, it's just there is a camaraderie that you feel it on screen, and it is behind camera as well.
And the storyline is that even though Mark is from Boston, you had to make it from New York because that's what you knew.
That's what I knew. You know, and it sounds like, oh, what's the big difference? But it really needed specific for me to understand that a real New York vibe, and you know, that's what I was going for. So
yet another reason why I should direct the movie.
I think so too.
New Yorker.
So when is the movie coming?
I
think so too.
As soon as I read a script, as soon as I get out of here, Ari's going to call me and go, "Where's the script? It's not done yet." So.
The plan is to do the movie. Everybody wants it to happen.
I think a scene ought to come at this table, don't you?
I would love you on the show. We'd love you in the movie. Excuse me, not the show. It would be great.
It would up our street cred. If you for the love of God.
Thank you.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you very much.